Emergency. He's destroying our waterfront. That was Karen's voice, her trademark shriek, slicing right through the morning like a chainsaw, just as I was driving in the last nail on my dock. And I'm not exaggerating, either. She was out there, HOA President Sash practically fluttering, dialing 911 and putting on a performance worthy of soap opera Emmy. Police needed immediately. 3 months of permits, official surveys, construction logs, all mine, all legal. And she's making it sound like I'm detonating dynamite in the middle of a daycare. I remember just standing there, hammer in hand, watching her pace on her back deck with the phone glued to her ear. The audacity. Honestly, I'd never seen anything like it. What I didn't know right then was that this call wasn't just about my dock or my sanity. It was the spark that would blow the lid off secrets nobody wanted aired. If you're wrestling with your own HOA drama, by the way, drop a comment where you're watching from, because what I found in those property records will make your jaw hit the floor. I've been up before sunrise, camera gear in my kayak, shooting mist curling off Lake Maplewood for a wellness campaign, trying to catch that magic light that brands pay a fortune for. The lake was my studio, my haven. It's why I put up with the astronomical price tag for this house. Waterfront access wasn't just a luxury, it was my livelihood. By 9:30, I was back on my dock, hammering in the last boards of a project that had eaten every spare weekend for months. Freelance photographer life means everything. Shoots, gear, quiet, inspiration. Runs smoother when you own a slice of lake. That dock was my pride. Nothing flashy, but solid, legal, built to blend in, and yeah, built to last. Then, just as I'm about to call it done, Karen Wilson materializes on her deck, motionless, watching me like a Border Patrol agent with something to prove. Her gaze followed every swing, every screw, every bead of sweat. She stood there for minutes, eyes drilling holes in me, phone pressed tight, and you could feel it, the build-up, the sense she was ready to pounce. If you've ever dealt with a self-righteous neighbor, you know the feeling. I kept going, reminding myself, this is my land, my project. I dotted every I. She's just posturing. Now, Karen, she's not some cartoon villain, at least not on the surface. When I moved in, she'd shown up with muffins and a 40-page binder called Maplewood Community Standards. Mailbox heights, approved paint colors, fence post spacing, every micro detail covered. Back then, I appreciated the thoroughness, but watching her that morning, broadcasting my every move to the world, my gratitude had curdled into suspicion. Her voice suddenly blasted out over the yard. Yes, 911, we have a man destroying community property. Children are at risk. He's got power tools, by the water. She gestured at my cordless drill like it was a live grenade. There wasn't a soul in sight, except some ducks and maybe a turtle. The nearest kid was probably a quarter mile away, but Karen didn't miss a beat, stopping, listening, amping up the crisis with each breath. 15 minutes later, here come the sirens. Neighbors spilled onto their porches, peeking out like prairie dogs after a storm. Mrs. Patterson had her mug in hand, frowning in genuine concern. Across the street, a retired couple pressed their faces to the glass. If someone was being murdered, they didn't want to miss it. Officer Johnson rolled up, moving with the weary air of a man who'd seen more HOA spats than actual emergencies. Karen intercepted him, manila folder in hand, all energy and arm waving, pointing at me like she was identifying a suspect in a lineup. "That's him," she announced, voice ringing with certainty. "He's destroying our community waterfront." Johnson gave me a look, half professional, half please don't make my day worse. "Sir, we received a 911 call. Dangerous equipment, immediate hazards, kids at risk," he said, not quite buying it, but doing his job. I laid out my paperwork, permits, clearances, surveys, every last slip, organized and ready. "Officer, it's all authorized," I said. Every inch within my boundary, every box checked. Karen's folder snapped open. Tabs, highlights, whole sections flagged. She was quoting bylaws, referencing disputes from the 80s, mentioning ownership timelines longer than my entire residence in Maplewood. That's when my skin really started to crawl. She knew things, dates, prior issues, construction plans. I told nobody except the county. How did she know so much? Johnson, bless him, gave my documents a good look and, with the patience of a saint, told Karen, "Ma'am, this looks properly permitted. 911 is for emergencies, not neighbor disputes. Civil channels exist for this." You'd think that'd be the end of it, but Karen wasn't done. "Officer, battery tools by water, danger. The board will be filing formal complaints. Construction must stop pending resolution." Her voice was ice, her threat timed perfectly. The cruiser pulled away and the world got quiet, but inside my head, everything clicked. Karen hadn't improvised. She'd prepped for war. Documents, timelines, the legalese. This was a campaign, and I was her latest project. But here's the thing. She thought I'd fold under pressure. Maybe pack it in, move my dock, maybe just move away. She didn't know I make a living with research, with patience, with outlasting the clock. The dock could wait. It was time to find out just how deep Maplewood's secrets went. Monday, 9 a.m., I'm editing photos when the bell rings. Through the peephole, I spot a suit holding a thick envelope, process server written all over him. "Sam Thompson," he asks. "Legal documents for you." The letterhead reads Wilson and Associates, which just so happens to match Karen's last name. I tell myself it's a coincidence, but my gut says otherwise. Inside is a 15-page emergency injunction, Wilson v. Thompson, demanding an immediate stop to my dock, painting me as the scourge of Lake Maplewood. I'm supposedly destroying the community, endangering lives, ignoring every rule in the book. Court date, Friday, 5 days away. Clearly, the gloves are off. Most people would panic. Maybe that was the point. But as I sifted through her accusations, a different feeling crept in. Photographers can spot stage shots from a mile off, and this whole thing reeked of theater. That afternoon, Karen showed up at my door with a tuna casserole and a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I hope you don't mind the legal papers," she purred. Sometimes these matters require documentation. The offer was simple. Move the dock 20 feet east, avoid the hassle. That area is safer, lower impact. The board will approve it, no problem. Only problem? That stretch of shoreline was 3 feet deep, full of rocks, useless for anything but ducks. Compromise, Karen called it. But we both knew what it was, a velvet-gloved ultimatum. Refuse, and I'm the bad neighbor. Accept, and I lose everything the dock means to me. "Let's let the courts decide," I said, polite as possible. Her smile froze, and she fired back. "Litigation can get expensive, especially for freelancers." She knew my job, my background, probably my bank account balance. This wasn't neighborly concern. It was targeted intimidation. Maplewood's a close community, Sam. We know things. And in these cases, courts tend to side with stability over individual preference. She shared stories about past residents who tried to push back, all of whom eventually found other living arrangements. That was the real message. Fight and you'll be gone. I ended the conversation as soon as I could, but the pressure was on. 5 days to face off with a woman who'd never lost one of these battles. Court day came, me with my folder, her with a legal army and a rolling cart of exhibits. Judge Adams, all steely hair and wire-rimmed glasses, presided. Karen's lawyers rolled out aerial shots of my dock, surveyor diagrams, tearful neighbors claiming their views were ruined, the whole neighborhood supposedly on the verge of collapse because of my project. My defense? The truth, permits, property lines, county approval. But in a room primed for drama, legalities sound pretty weak against neighbors testifying about ruined sunrises. Judge Adams reviewed everything, then dropped the hammer. "You have 30 days to submit plans to the review board. No more construction until then. Court costs, too," the gallery murmured. Karen smiled like a chess master. But then, as I gathered my stuff, Judge Adams added, "If superior property rights exist that supersede community authority, this could be reversed. Research your property's legal foundation." And just like that, a window cracked open. I lived at the records office for a week, poring through deeds, plats, old probate files, asking Margaret the clerk for every dusty file she could unearth. Turns out my land had belonged to James and Margaret Thompson, my own surname, in the 60s. When the Maplewood developers bought it, Margaret kept a perpetual easement for lake access, road use, utilities, for all future farming and lake activities. No record the easement was ever terminated. If I was family, I might have inherited it. With Margaret's help, I tracked the lineage. Margaret Thompson's will name the next male descendant within 50 miles of Lake Maplewood as heir. That was me. Her will made her fears clear. She wanted future development to never choke off lake access for people like her. And in the shuffle of county paperwork, her rights were never properly extinguished. The road system, the main entrance, the circle, even the spot where HOA meetings were held, all sat inside her old easement. If those rights held up, HOA rules couldn't override them. I hired Jim, a crusty land surveyor who'd been mapping this county since the 70s. We compared old maps, new GPS data, iron pins hammered into the dirt by hands 50 years dead, and it was undeniable. 85% of Maplewood's roads, mailboxes, even the event lawn, all on my gray Tance easement. With a binder full of evidence, I called Tracy Collins, a property lawyer who actually listened. She explained the law. A perpetual easement gives the holder, me, if the courts agreed, what's called dominant estate authority. That trumps HOA rules. Courts had sided with people like me before. Now I just had to file the paperwork and see if the judge agreed. Weeks went by. Karen paraded her victory, soaking up the spotlight. Media interviews, HOA rallies, even talk of a run for county council. She held up my defeat as proof of Maplewood's strong leadership. Meanwhile, I kept quiet, gathering signatures, waiting for the next board meeting. That night arrived, and Karen set the scene. Neighbors packed into the community center, ready to watch me get denied. Except I walked in with Tracy, Jim the surveyor, and the county clerk. I stood up. Before we talk about architectural review, I have new documentation. Tracy laid out the inheritance, the survey overlays, Margaret's easement agreement. Karen sputtered. This is a review hearing, not court. But then Jim rolled out the map, showing most of Maplewood built smack on my family's rights. Easement law says older rights trump newer rules, Tracy explained. The room went silent. Karen paled. We need legal review, she finally whispered. I smiled calm. Of course. While you review, I'll be finishing my doc. I don't need board approval. The spell was broken. Karen's authority vanished, and by the time the board adjourned, you could hear the gears turning all over the room. Karen tried to fight, filed emergency motions, brought in a legal army, but the records were clear. Judge Adams ruled. Thompson's easement predates the HOA, grants dominant rights, and must be respected. All HOA actions against his property are void. Further, your 911 call was an abuse of emergency services and will be reviewed by the district attorney. The HOA ate the legal bills. Karen's political ambitions dissolved overnight, and the next day, neighbors who testified against me showed up with apologies, asking if I'd allow continued access to the roads, which of course I would, as long as everyone respected the agreement and my property rights. Karen didn't stick around. Her for sale sign went up before the paint was dry on my new dock. Maplewood changed almost overnight. Less about rules, more about respect. The dock became more than a platform for kayaks. It was proof that sometimes, if you dig deep enough, you find the kind of leverage that rewrites the whole story. The court's ruling spread like wildfire, and soon other neighborhoods were checking their deeds, questioning old assumptions, demanding fairer treatment. 6 months later, Lake Maplewood is what it always pretended to be, a real community, not just a collection of rule books. Looking out at the water, I sometimes wonder if Karen hadn't called 911. Would any of this have happened? Maybe not. But in her rush to declare an emergency, she set off a chain reaction that changed everything. So, tell me, where do you stand on the balance between community and individual rights? Ever tangled with an HOA? Drop your own story in the comments. I guarantee someone else out there is fighting the same fight.